we are seeing. The age of bobby socks and ice cream sodas is gone. These people no longer feel in all cultures and could learn about fresh thinking from them. Their energy is boundless. They play hard, but they are also involved. They are free thinking for the most part and not afraid to voice their criticisms. But many more of them have simply dropped out. They have made what they consider their own peace with America, involved in finding out who they are. Discovering the inner man cannot be minimized, but a nation in turmoil needs the vigor, the newness of its young. This exploration, this search for new values, has led into a new and dangerous area, the use of narcotics and hallucinogens. The brain, the body, indeed the freedom to do, can be so jeopardized by these drugs that new politics, more realistic values, and a meaningful, less materialistic society may never have the opportunity of becoming a reality. The turned-on people, who seem to set many of today's lifestyles, are not the only ones smoking grass, popping bennies, shooting speed, or dropping acid. If they were, the problem would be somewhat less tragic. These practices have spread to colleges, high schools, and even elementary schools. The students are being exposed to drugs that many of them believe are without lasting physiological or mental effects. On the contrary, these substances are extremely dangerous. This trend toward drugs has alarmed every responsible segment of the community, for they know that there are inherent risks in the drug experience. Aside from its illegality, there is a medical risk to the brain and body. Perhaps the biggest risk is the placing of the psyche in peril. At the moment, these students are striving for something. In time, they may become total dropouts from a world that needs desperately what they can offer. To try and cut through the undue propaganda on both sides of the drug problem, Dr. John T. Burroughs, Medical Director of Narcotics Education with the Los Angeles District Attorney's Youth Advisory Council, clarifies the extent of the drug problem and the term addiction.
Well, I think the use of the word addiction is definitely obsolete, and it's been a very unfortunate thing that it has been used to try to define whether a drug is harmful or not. This use of the word addiction was started with the World Health Organization in 1950, and they have realized their great mistake in this and have recently, in 1965, completely redefined drug problems in other terms. We know that the drugs have two effects that cause dependency or the desire for the use of the drug. And the most important one, and the one that was not emphasized in the previous definition, is the psychic dependence, the dependence of the person from a mental point of view upon needing or desiring the drug. Now, there is also, with some drugs, physical dependence.
One important part of the drug problem is that so many substances are available or are being made available for use. Dr. Burroughs describes some of the major ones and their effects.
From the complete anesthetics, or the ones that will put you entirely to sleep, we can go into the depressants, or the downers, as they're known, and these are, of course, primarily the barbiturates. These are known as the red devils, the secanols, the nembutols, or yellow jackets, the tuanols, or rainbows, and so forth. These are all, of course, the barbiturate drugs. They can be taken by mouth, or some people prefer to take them out of the capsule and give themselves the drug intravenously. Now, the barbiturates have some very severe problems with them. For one thing, they do produce tolerance to a certain degree, and it is necessary to take more and more of the drug to produce the same effect. However, this tolerance is limited. Now, under the effects of the drug, there tends to be a distortion of time, and of course the person is confused. And the person may accidentally take more drug than he had anticipated, forgetting that he had just taken a dose a few minutes before. In addition to this, the barbiturates, when withdrawn, do produce a physical dependence or withdrawal type reaction. And with the barbiturates is a marked tendency for the person to develop convulsions. Grand mal convulsions or seizures, and unless these are controlled, they can lead to the death of the individual. After the depressants, we come to the next major group of drugs, which is the stimulants. The first ones used were the more mild forms, the dexedrine, hearts as they were called, peaches, and so on. And dexedrine is a mild form of a stimulant drug used in medicine for appetite control and in certain diseases. In medicine, we might give 5 to 10 milligrams of dexedrine or benzedrine, or the new drug methamphetamine, methadrine, which is known among drug users as speed. As incredible as it may sound, the person who's using this drug as a drug user will smack or mainline, that is, take intravenously 1,000 milligrams, 100 times the dose that any person would give in the medical use of this kind of drug. And the effect is overwhelming. In this kind of dosage, it causes a fantastic speeding up of the mind function, so that the person suddenly feels a rush of tremendous numbers of ideas flashing through his mind, and as a matter of fact, with hallucinogenic type overtones. His blood pressure may exceed 300 millimeters of mercury, and as you know, normal blood pressure is perhaps 110 or 120 millimeters. At the same time, his heart is beating at a fantastic rate, maybe in excess of 150 beats a minute, normal being 72 or so. And he may develop arrhythmias of the heart. That is, the beat, instead of being regular, becomes highly irregular. And there have been rare deaths reported from this. As this drug begins to wear off, there's a tremendous psychic reaction and an overreaction, so the person becomes markedly depressed. Severely depressed, which in itself is enough reason for him to want to take more drug, or perhaps to take barbiturates to ease this feeling of anxiety and depression, or other drugs, or back to meth or speed again. This depression is so marked that the person may wish to, and does sometimes, commit suicide.
Dr. Burroughs describes 2 more categories of drugs, the deliriants and marijuana.
The most important entity, marijuana. Now, the deliriants are the drugs such as the glues, the glue sniffing, which include gasoline, ether, paint thinners, even some deodorants have been used. They, like all the other drugs, produce a mind-changing effect, so that the person feels a feeling of unusual happiness, a feeling of unreality. These drugs have some severe physical effects. If they are sniffed so that the actual material that is being used, such as airplane glue, can get into the nose or mouth, it causes a real burning of the mucous membranes and can cause rather severe damage. And it is becoming overwhelmingly evident that an increasing number of children are showing up with brain damage and what we call chronic brain disease. Now, marijuana is not a separate thing. This, again, is a drug. Just like LSD is a drug, just like amphetamine is a drug, or just like barbiturate is a drug. There's a specific chemical in marijuana known as tetrahydrocannabinol, or let's call it THC from here on out for short, which is the material, the chemical, that produces the high of marijuana.
Dr. Burroughs pointed out that a good deal of the confusion concerning the effects of this drug is due to its very low concentration in American marijuana, or grass. Smoking typical pot usually produces mind-altering or hallucinogenic experiences, though sometimes it has little or no effect on some people. But as the drug becomes more concentrated, it has all of the effects of any of the hallucinogens. In high dosage, it parallels LSD. And already, more purified marijuana, hashish, and the synthesized THC itself are readily available.
I think it becomes obvious after having categorized all these drugs, we've now talked about all these different categories, one thing keeps coming up all the time, and that is the drug-dependent, mind-changing or mind-altering effect of all of these drugs. The unfortunate person who gets started in this finds himself getting into an ever-increasing abyss, where he starts out with the idea, I'll have a kick or a high, and that'll do something for him. Well, it's true, these things do have a kick, or obviously people wouldn't try them. But the trouble is, the person then gets involved in this vicious cycle. The kick becomes something that is not as good as he thought it was. He finds by using his drug that he has lost his capability to be responsible, he's lost his ability to be a worthwhile, successful student or successful individual. So he starts to seek ways to help him, and the only way he can seek, since he's using the drug now to avoid the reality of his failures, is to take more drugs. And down he spins. And he spins into a situation where he is virtually buried alive in a chemical tomb. This is the problem of drug dependency. One of the most tragic things about all this, as far as teenagers are concerned, is what this does to the teenager. A teenager is a person who is finally grown up to the point that he can begin to struggle with making his own personal decisions. And he makes these decisions and finally learns how to do them, and when he has gone through this decision-making process, he suddenly turns from a teenager to a mature adult. One of the things that will stop it cold sooner than anything else is the taking of drugs. Because in taking the drugs, the person is doing exactly the opposite of what he's trying to do as a teenager. He is putting himself into a position where he cannot make decisions, where he is only irresponsible and incapable of doing this, and he is cutting his life off.
But there are other reasons not to smoke marijuana or to take dangerous drugs. Possession of them is illegal. It is not, as many seem to believe today, an unenlightened law. Nearly every country in the world, including the United States, is a signatory to an international law banning the use, sale, cultivation, and possession of dangerous drugs that have no useful place in medicine, such as heroin and marijuana. Is the gamble of drug exploration worth this? Is it worth the physical and mental risk as well? The courts today are crowded with young offenders. Tragically, many of them are from good homes. They are well educated and have opportunities that are available in no other country in the world. One immature and irresponsible action, for whatever motivation, can bring serious fines, prison terms, or both. A criminal record is never an asset. It can mean the end of a fine future. The drug question is a subtle one. This is an age of change, an age when society and authority are constantly being challenged. All too often, drugs have played a part in or have been used as a principal means of rebellion against authority. But drugs are not the proper tools with which to confront, to change a society that somehow hasn't fulfilled all its promise. Quite the contrary. Drugs rob one of the energy, the attention, the very ability to see what is. And the ability to work for effective changes of any kind depends on clear and disciplined minds. Those who take drugs to produce new insights, or for self-discovery, or for a host of other romantic reasons, find themselves snared and deluded. Illicit drugs are sold for a price, the price of helplessness and suffering for the buyer, for the greed and gain of the seller. Many of today's young people are meeting the challenges before them. They are turning on to a world that needs more involvement, more selflessness. The extreme danger today is that which is created by the closed mind. We must not accept some facts about drugs and ignore others. The drug issue is wide and complicated and cannot be faced only by the police. They need the active cooperation and the involvement of enlightened parents, school, church, and community leaders. But above all, the need is for clear-thinking young people who are the most involved and who have the most to lose. If communication has broken down between the younger and older generations, it must somehow be re-established. At the same time, it will be necessary for the young to communicate common sense, one to the other.
The other senses take. The child hears, smells, tastes, feels. And as he grows, learns right from wrong, learns to live with other people. Inhibitions that protect him from himself. Each part of the brain develops in its own time, until at maturity, the machine of man is complete. A human being is developed. But the kind of human being depends upon the sum total of all the knowledge and skills that time and experience have stored in the brain, has decided to put there. What will a man be? Doctor, secretary, scientist, truck driver, thief, swindler, skid row bum? This is determined in the years of living. It is not fated at birth. For in the beginning, God created man in his own image. There is laughter and hope as the young baby emerges for the first time into the bright, warm sunlight. But for this girl, the laughter will die, the light will. For this is the story of a junkie, a hype. It is the beginning of an 18-year journey into hell. But how is such a journey made when the beginning is perfection? With the growing years, her mind and body take form. She begins making the decisions that will shape her future.
Mother! Mom! Sorry, I won't be able to get home to dinner again tonight. Forgot about the club meeting. Plenty in the refrigerator. Father called. He'll be home next week. See you tomorrow. Mother.
With each new year, the decisions become more complex, and sometimes they become mixed and entwined with emotions that distort and destroy the facts. Loneliness, fear, misunderstanding, anger, defiance, or just a natural curiosity. These emotions take command as the young mind probes and experiments with life. She is hungry and eager to grow into the cherished dream of adulthood. But that goal is unchanneled. The adult tools which are available symbolize for her the arrival into the grown-up world, a dream world where dependency is ended and loneliness can be conquered. And adding appeal to the situation, the unsupervised adolescent playing the make-believe role of adult easily finds companions to join in the game. and perhaps introduce new rules. Narcotics addiction frequently follows a pattern of gradual use of different drugs. Often the introduction comes in the form of a goofball. These are barbiturates. Ones in common use are seconal, nembutal, and luminol. These are legitimate medications when prescribed by a physician who understands their use and potential dangers. Barbiturates are sedatives and hypnotics with depressant effects. To help offset the sedative effect, barbiturates are sometimes taken in conjunction with amphetamines or pep-up pills such as benzedrine and dexedrine. These are opposites, and the body struggles to maintain a state of normal reactions. Once in the system, barbiturates go to work on the nerve center. A dulling curtain shades reality. Thought becomes slow, confused, and judgment is defective. Emotions are unstable. The drug continues to work deeper into the nerve center. Walking lacks normal coordination. Other motor areas are dulled, and activity is confused. Tremors often result. The senses are affected. The eyes oscillate involuntarily, and it becomes difficult to hold a fixed position. If pep-up pills are taken at the same time, opposing forces attack the brain. Instability increases in both thought and action. Both drugs are physically dangerous. The addict takes a chance so that he can feel high. But he is not high. He is confused, for he has drugged and distorted the knowledge and skills that life and time have given him. Escape, a flight from reality. She has found a crutch to see her through her difficulties, instead of facing up to them and learning to cope with them. She has made her decision. In time, as her problems grow, her need for the crutch will grow. She will search for something different, something better. Jive, marry, pot, tea. Technically, it's cannabis sativa. The common name, marijuana. Though often packed in real tobacco cans, this dangerous drug is easily distinguished from tobacco by its rough texture and greenish color. And the sticks, joints, or reefers, as the cigarettes are often called, are easily recognized alongside a tobacco cigarette. Marijuana is consumed in its own special way. It is not smoked by accident. Thus, the novice being taught how to use the drug by a pusher has made her own decision, and another step toward hell is taken. Marijuana enters the blood through the lungs. The drug is carried in the bloodstream to the brain. The effect comes quickly, with the drug attacking first the area in which learned behavior is stored. A cloud forms, hazing out the years of conscience, inhibitions, judgment. The user loses the protection of experience and common sense. The attack continues, moving in upon the area of the senses. Sight and sound and touch become distorted. With continued use, the drug will work deeper into the areas controlling the automatic body functions, and physical impairment follows. When smoking, the user is in an unreal world. He lives and reacts to illusions, to things as they appear to his clouded mind, and not as they really are. Perception are greatly affected by this drug. A single step may appear as a cliff. Time perception is also distorted. Time is suspended, and fast action appears slow. Danger is ever present. Narcotics users form a tight and frightened society of their own. Their code is secrecy and suspicion. The marijuana smoker, unlike most other narcotic users, prefers company when smoking the drug. Thus, so-called tea parties are common events. It is inevitable that with the passage of time, the user will drift into a group and become enmeshed in the silent society of fear. When introducing the drug, the pusher offered the reefers free. But in time, the novice begins to feel the need for the marijuana, and the pusher knows the free ride is over. He has a paying customer. She has come to depend more and more on the escape offered by the drug. To face each new problem, she needs the crutch. She searches him out. She needs one now. She's way down, demanding mental craving. The deal is set, the buy is made. But she needs a place to consume the drug, for fear and suspicion are part of her life now. Earlier, the pusher sold reefers to the group now gathered in the alley. He was their connection. He tells the girl of the tea party now in progress, and she goes eagerly to join in. Narcotics addiction offers peculiar enforcement problems, for police officers must seek out not only the criminals, but the victims of the crime, the users. Here, a car secluded in a dead-end alley has aroused the suspicion of enforcement officers. They move in to investigate. The bust is made, swift arrest. The girl escapes by seconds. Yet paradoxically, arrest might have been her only hope. For in the world of narcotics, there are no real escapes, only endings. Again, she is faced with a decision. But now her decision is twisted by her membership in the Society of Addicts. She hurries to warn the others of the arrest. The apprehension of any member of the group sets off panic among the others. They know that a single narcotics arrest often sets off a chain of other arrests. The pusher, the owner of the malt shop and a heroin addict, who also sells the stuff, confer. The marijuana pusher gives his supply to the girl, convincing her that she won't be suspected. In reality, he is putting her into jeopardy to protect himself. If they're caught, she will have the evidence and he'll be clean. And they run, leaving the frightened girl to hide, a place where she'll be safe. In her fear, she accepts. But one victim has cooperated. The chain reaction begins. In the depths of the city, the addict leads his hopeful conquest to his pad. The girl, though uneasy in these surroundings, is driven by fear. It is a typical dwelling of a height. He needs only a roof. All other money must be reserved for the most important thing in life, heroin. Behavior approaching paranoia is characteristic of the addict. Upon entering a room, he locks the door, pulls blinds, and checks other rooms to assure himself that he is not being watched. Assured of safety, he turns his attention now to the girl. His first move is to calm her and gain her confidence. He suggests that they blast a stick or two. This is the first step in his cautious plan. His real goal is to introduce her to heroin. This is a typical operation. Get a few girls hooked and dependent upon him for their daily ration of stuff. In return, they work for him, prostitutes. Thus, they get their heroin, and he has an income. The hype is long past receiving any real effects from marijuana. His body is conditioned to the most powerful drug of all, heroin. But for the moment, he will play the game and feign friendship. Beyond the shabby rooms, swift action key. With the help of information gained in the original arrest, officers close in on the marijuana pusher. His planned escape with more of his merchandise is cut short. He tries to lose the evidence, but without success. And the enforcement net begins to close on the upper echelons of the criminal ring. But even as officers strike at the heart of the problem, a new victim is being lured into the trap of addiction. High, high as a kite. The marijuana has done its job well. She can be led now, ready to go along. Casually, he introduces the idea of something stronger, wheel kicks. He is careful to imply that it's only for himself. The marijuana has her beyond the protection of normal fear. The outfit, the addict's closest companion. He will usually keep several hidden in different locations. It sometimes consists of a hypodermic syringe, but more often a medicine dropper substitute. The needle, a spoon, and a small wad of cotton. All sanitary precautions are ignored, and hypes often contact venereal diseases, tetanus, hepatitis, and other infections transmitted into their blood by a dirty needle. 3 caps. He chooses 2 for his own fix, saving 1 in the hope that his plan succeeds. He plays on her curiosity. To prepare the solution, he first empties the contents of the caps into the spoon. Heroin comes at a high price, and every tiny grain of the stuff is precious to the hype. Anything spilled must be retrieved. A few drops of water are added, just enough to make a solution. It's mixed and dissolved. He leads her step by step into participation, depending upon the effects of the tea to keep the air of fun, a game. A small wad of cotton is placed in the solution to serve as a filter. The stuff is drawn into the dropper through the cotton. The cottons used several times are saved, and later, should he be caught short and in need of a fix, the hype will cook the cottons for what small quantity of the drug they contain. The pop is ready, and the needle is put in place. Preparations for the actual shot are normally made in a matter of a few seconds. He usually ties the tourniquet with his teeth and one hand. Now, though, he asks for help, thus making her participate, drawing her in, preparing her. Her normal reaction would probably be fear, perhaps revulsion. But the marijuana is in command now. The years of learned judgment, common sense, inhibitions are fogged out. The hype relies upon this heavily. At his careful suggestion, she joins eagerly in the game. The needle has pierced the vein, and he directs her to loosen the tourniquet to allow the blood to flow. He finishes with a flourish, minimizing the unpleasant aspects. And he builds his feeling, the real kicks. But nobody wants to get high by himself. Why doesn't she fly with him? He can fix her a little pop. Another decision. But this time the facts are distorted and blurred. Now in custody, and with a case built against him, the young pusher offers information. He knows a hype, a pusher. There's a girl with him, probably at his pad. He gives the address. Having a previous arrest, the addict pusher is identified from a mugshot. This is the crucial moment in the hype's plan. He must be persuasive without frightening her. She is wary, has a natural fear of the needle, has heard of those who get hooked. He uses a common argument. Only squares get hooked. Be an occasional user, a chippy. Just take a pop when you want something to take you out of this world. The idea entices her. A real escape. Curiosity, participation, and now use. Officers are dispatched to apprehend the addict, and the chain pattern of arrests that is familiar in narcotics cases continues. The careful, gradual introduction nears a payoff. When no needle is available, an addict may cut the vein with a razor blade and literally pour the stuff in with the bare dropper. With the needle well inserted, the drug is injected. The main line. Here the blood indicates that the spike has hit the mark, the vein. This is the high point in this secret and distorted society, dedicated to self-destruction and the beginning of the final chapter in the 18-year journey into hell. The effects will begin almost immediately. For the drug travels quickly with the flow of blood to the brain. All areas are attacked almost simultaneously, for heroin is a total cerebral and spinal depressant. All activity in the nerve center slows down. Even the automatic body functions are affected as pulse and breathing become retarded. Where other drugs distorted reality, heroin blocks out the outside world, leaving the addict in a world of his own. In a short time, the brain adjusts to this new subjective world, this world of slow motion, of dull lights and soft sounds. It's a colorless world, gray and drab, without feeling or sensations. The pupils of the eyes contract. A feeling of drowsiness sets in. The brain can no longer cope with the normal world of sound and light and feeling. Out of this world? In truth, it is the beginning of the end. For of all those who dare to take this treacherous journey on the main line, less than 2% ever return. Another addict, the convert of a former day, is in need of a fix. She gives the knock known to her supplier. The junkie opens to no one until he is prepared. The evidence is quickly rolled into the cloth and placed on the girl's lap. If it should be a raid, the stuff would be in her possession, not his. Even though the intruder is one of his girls, she is not welcome. She could smash the plan that has gone so well until now. But she is in the first stage of withdrawal. A fix is imperative. He must take the chance. In his favor, the new conquest is beyond rational thought and reason. Normal human emotions are in a void. Even though she Pearl means more money for the group and less work for her. Withdrawal begins with the general feeling of an approaching cold, running nose and watering eyes. The cold grows worse as the body, accustomed to the depressant gray world of the drug, returns toward normality. The eyes are up, dilated. Light pierces, stabs the eyes, and the smallest noise is excruciating as the nerves and senses are laid bare. The mere cold advances to flu symptoms. The addict soon comes to learn that when the symptoms appear, fixes the one hope. Within a few hours, the body will be helpless. Nausea, violent coughing, and retching join the pattern. But now, even in the midst of misery, a smile to the novice. A smile wrought from a memory in the vague past. For each victim of this slavery once knew freedom.
Engaged. A happiness I couldn't accept. How many times in these years have I wondered why I was excitement, kicks. And then the night I got high, the pattern was cut. And now never to go back, never to return.
The stuff has been laid out, and he gives her the used, unsterilized outfit to take her fix. He has left the caps in the bathroom, a move calculated to get her away from the younger girl. But the scene of growing horror has unfolded before imperceptive eyes. He hurries now to take the novice out, since he knows that there may be an even greater storm before the drug has a chance to bring the calm. The first shot of heroin usually results in nausea. He knows that activity will only tend to increase the sick feeling, but he chooses that over letting her witness withdrawals. The addict in the midst of withdrawal time, each step toward helplessness. Moving in to apprehend the addict and small-time peddler, officers miss their target by minutes. But they can nevertheless strike a blow at the silently growing cancer of misery and crime. Aware that the room is occupied, they prepare the surprise that is essential to a narcotics arrest. Addicts often try to swallow their heroin supply if apprehended. It is almost a reflex action, one of the basic laws of the hell in which they exist. The place is searched for other occupants. Doors of hell swing wide open to draw the addict in as she begins to kick. The physical tortures grow with each minute, for the body's demand for heroin is no mere desire, but a driving madness, a compulsion that cannot be satisfied except with the drug itself. And heroin is so dangerous and so powerful that its importation, even for medical purposes, has been outlawed in America since 1925. To further establish this girl's addiction to hard stuff, the officers check her arms. Here the hype wears the telltale marks of the habit. In response to the compulsion, the veins must be punctured with several injections each day. The fix is usually taken on the inside of the elbow. But in time, the vein will collapse. And the hype generally ties off further and further down the arm. As the entire vein becomes impossible to tap, the other arm is used. Then the search for other veins begins. Scar tissue like this forms on the veins after continued use, creating a snake or track. Older hypes use veins on the backs of hands, in the fingers, and even between the toes. When arrested, addicts will often try to scratch or burn the scars, since they can be used in evidence against them. No one else inflicted these wounds. It was her own decision, one in the long road of decisions that led her to deform and disfigure her own body. The dulling veil of the drug continues to lift, and every normal experience is agonizing. Yawning joins the pattern of nausea and retching. Vicious pains begin to grow in the spine and quickly spread into the limbs. Addicts describe these pains as being worse than having the limbs torn off. They often clutch and tear at themselves in an effort to divert the torment. Sudden chills sweep over the entire body. Anyone witnessing withdrawals is torn with compassion, but she is beyond the help of these officers. Retching grows worse. Vomiting begins. The chills are suddenly displaced by raging heat. The body feels as if it is literally on fire. The final move is always to the floor, which provides some sort of security. A new, intangible pain creeps over the entire body, a strange torture just under the skin. The addict will suffer another 3 to 5 days, unable to sleep day or night, before the racking pain begins to subside. This is the root of the addict's compulsion, a compulsion to lie, cheat, steal, even kill, to avoid the long living hell of withdrawal. But the seeds of addiction blow in the silent wind, and those seeds have taken new root in this girl. She has escaped detection, and she drifts on, carrying the problem with her, treading the final steps of her 18-year journey into hell. She is not free, but bound in slavery to the drug. It is the sum total of her life, her experience, her learning, her decisions. All the industry of living is devoted to one end, a pop, a shot, a fix. Nothing else in life has meaning. She will sell all her possessions and finally herself in her drive for drugs. The body builds a tolerance to heroin so that larger and larger daily quantities are required to satisfy the physical demand. The cost of the habit increases. $50, $75, $100 a day are needed to keep going. She will resort to any ends, and even murder becomes preferable to the constant overhanging threat of withdrawals. But detection comes in time. And the young girl whose own decision was escape from the burdens of normal living becomes an entry on a police blotter. The journey is over. She's hooked, a junkie, hype. There is no future. Soon the cold symptoms will commence, the growing tortures of long sleepless days and nights.
Most drugs are meant for medical use. These drugs are prescribed and prepared for particular problems by skilled and trusted hands. Someday, other hands may offer you drugs. You must decide. Everyone must decide. Drugs, use or abuse. Susan's father leads a happy, normal life because of drugs. Susan's father has a medical problem, diabetes. To stay alive and healthy, every day he must take a drug prescribed by his doctor. What are drugs? How do they help us with medical problems? Any chemical which affects the way the body functions is a drug. In medical use, drugs can help our bodies to function in a normal way. Some drugs can fight disease. Some can promote healing. And some drugs can relieve pain. Drugs, chemicals which affect our bodies, are also a part of the everyday world. Even coffee, tea, and Coke all contain substances which have an effect on the body. Drinking too many martinis at one time can produce alcohol poisoning, which could kill the drinker. Cigarettes contain nicotine, which shrinks our blood vessels and makes our heart work harder. We keep dozens of ordinary household items out of the reach of small children because they contain chemicals, drugs which could severely affect and damage the body. Some are very strong. Mild drugs for medical purposes are kept out on the shelves at the drugstore where anyone can buy them. But even mild drugs must be used properly. Strong drugs are made available only at the direction of medical experts. Doctors, more than any other people, understand the working of the human body. They study and continue to study how the body reacts to different drugs. Stimulant is the term for any drug which speeds up a body function. Depressants work in just the opposite way as stimulants. Depressants slow down a body function. This patient is given a type of depressant drug to relieve the pain of a major operation. There is a special reason for great care in the use of many depressant drugs. If some depressants are given for too long a time, the body comes to depend on them. Drug dependence brings sickness and great pain when the drug is taken away. Skill and knowledge are required with the use of all drugs. The right drug, in the right amount, helps with medical problems. The wrong drug, the wrong amount, can cause great harm. Not every medical problem requires care in the hospital. A doctor may prescribe drugs to be taken at home. A pharmacist will stock some of the drugs the doctor prescribes, just as they were prepared by the manufacturer. Others he prepares to the doctor's order. A pharmacist has studied many years to achieve the accuracy and precision his work requires. These drugs come with the knowledge of the doctor and the pharmacist, prescribed for a particular problem, prepared in exact amounts, given with precise instructions for a particular person. These drugs may be strong enough to injure or kill, but used correctly, they will help, not harm you. They come from hands you can trust. But can you trust these hands? Can you trust these drugs? You must decide. Why do people without medical problems take drugs? They have other kinds of problems. They want to feel better. Theirs may be problems of loneliness. Sometimes family problems. A problem of having nothing to do. Or perhaps of fitting in with a group which has already begun a drug habit. They call the changes in the way they feel getting high. Getting high may take their minds off their problems for a while, but they will find themselves with new problems. Used by persons who know nothing about them, stimulants and depressants, called uppers and downers, can do permanent injury to vital organs of the body, or they may even cause death. Most pills were designed for medical use, but some persons get high with drugs that have no medical use at all. Marijuana, LSD, heroin. LSD may be in liquid or pill form. It is an extremely powerful drug of a type called hallucinogenic. The user experiences the world in an unreal manner. With some, effects of LSD approach the experience of insanity. Marijuana is an hallucinogenic drug. Recent scientific data indicates a possibility of adverse effects on body and mind. So many ways out, but no way out at all. Even the chemicals in commercial products are used by some to serve as drugs, as a way to get high. Ordinary solvents, gasoline, or glue. Ordinary? Only when used for what they were intended. As drugs, just as damaging as any other, just as deadly. Physical damage and death are only a part of the problem. One of the great dangers of drugs is the feeling of need, developing a drug habit, the emotional need to escape through drug use again and again. But whichever drug is taken, getting high just changes the person. The real world we all must live in is still out there. Personal problems are very real problems. But everyone who ever sought escape through the drug habit found their problems still there when they were no longer high. Are drugs for personal problems? Or are they for use through those whose knowledge and skill permit success? Whose hands can you trust? Which drugs can you trust? Only you can decide.
Usually you'll find people that take drugs are kind of weak people. They need something to hang on to. It's a crutch type thing. Actually, you'd have to look at each individual case because everybody takes drugs for different reasons. I took different kind of drugs for many different reasons. I had to spend some time with a psychiatrist. I was lonely, insecure. Everybody else was doing it, and I didn't want to be left out. It was kind of a heavy thing. Anybody else have a question?
How many different kinds of drugs are there?
Amphetamines, barbiturates, hallucinogens, and the hard stuff, opiates. So there's approximately 5 categories. Yes?
Are drugs and narcotics the same thing?
No. Narcotics would be referring to the opiates, or the opium derivatives. They're from the opium poppy, which gives us heroin, morphine, and opium. And drugs are usually synthetically made through the use of chemistry.
How about you?
What was it like, the first drug that most people started taking?
Probably marijuana, because at the time it was the easiest to get, and the easiest to get high on.
Do some people that know how bad drugs are for take them anyway?
Yes, unfortunately. Because of disbelief, I think. They don't actually realize what's happening to them. It would be the same thing that if any of you have ever cut school or a class, that you don't do it by yourself. Because if you get caught, it's so much nicer to have one of your friends along to get caught. And this is the way it is in the drug scene, too. And a lot of people, they just don't want to believe that any of these things could be wrong, which is dumb.
Did you keep taking them after you knew about it?
I spent 3 months with a psychiatrist trying to get my head back into where it should be, trying to think pretty thoughts and be nice to people and trying to enjoy life like it should be.
Well, where do you get the drugs, the narcotics?
There are a lot of robberies at drug stores, and also the big pharmaceutical warehouses are the places where these drugs are made. If you could follow, say, one pill, and you saw it come out of the machine at the pharmaceutical place where it's made, and you were to take that, and if you could be a little tiny mouse or whatever, and you could follow that pill to the illegal drug market, you might be able to take a trip all the way across the United States and back again before it gets to the person that actually takes it. So it's a very, very kind of a odd thing.
What are junkies?
Junkies, these are what heroin addicts are, and this is what they usually call themselves because they call heroin junk. Because it's a slang term, so they call themselves junkies.
Well, where do you get the seeds? So let's say if you want to maybe grow a marijuana, is it illegal to sell the seeds or something?
The seeds usually come from, if you know somebody that has marijuana, it usually comes in the form of a kilo, which is a brick, which weighs about 2 pounds. How about you there?
Some people say that taking drugs isn't any worse than drinking like 5 martinis. Is that right?
Kind of drugs. Any kind of escape is bad for you. I mean, if you just can't say, this is life, and let it go at that, and try and accept everything for what it is. When you have to escape through anything, whether it be smoking, dope, taking any kind of narcotic, or drinking, it's the same difference. How about you?
Do drugs affect your personality?
I would say generally, of the types of drugs I was taking, it did. With any other kind of downer drugs, whether it be barbiturates or heroin, I didn't want to be bothered with anybody at all. The stimulants made me very, very uptight all the time, so I didn't like to be around a lot of people. And they give you a complex, any kind of drug, where you don't want to be amongst people and you're afraid everybody's going to do you in.
Another thing with your drug scene is that people that use drugs are usually I people, meaning I did this, I have that, I'm going to get this. And they are not we people, meaning they don't include other people, and they're not people that are very friendly. So this is another complex of the drug scene, you might say.
How about you back there?
In some cases, do people who are taking narcotics, well, would they kill to get the money to buy them?
In some cases, yes. Now, if you're talking about a junkie or an addict, they will usually do most anything to get the money, to buy another fix or to buy another dose of the drug. Now, if somebody said that they'd give them $500 to kill somebody and they needed the money bad enough to buy some more drugs, they might do it. Yes, it's very possible.
How about you?
Well, I heard there was like people who try to, well, that pushers, I guess they're called, and they approach certain people and try to get them to buy it from them. Well, who they think like approach to get?
You're very unlikely to get any kind of drugs unless you have a friend that is taking them. That could get the drugs for you. For you to go out into the street and try and score some grass, it would be literally impossible because of the fact that people are very, very afraid nowadays. They're always afraid that somebody's going to be the police, or somebody's going to do them in, or somebody's going to burn them, which means sell them something that isn't what they want. So generally, it's very hard to score.
Oh, my turn. Oh, yes, yes.
If you had known what it was like, would you have taken the drugs?
No, it makes for a lot of heartaches. You know, when you're younger, and when I was younger, well, Mom and Dad, they seem really dumb at times. But pretty soon you come to a period in your life when you realize that they might know a little bit more than you give them credit for. Well, then, to have to tell them, well, yeah, Mom, I used to get stoned all the time, and yeah, Dad, I was taking drugs and stuff. It hurts, and you feel just really small inside because they love you very, very much. And it's kind of a sad thing when you have to come out and tell them. And especially if they find it out. And it's kind of a sad thing. Your turn. Go ahead.
How about you in the back?
Do more men than women take drugs?
Let's put it this way. More males are arrested. But a lot of girls use it, and it's not a very pretty thing. So you might have a stamp on your forehead and not know it.
How about you, since you've been asking?
How long did you take drugs before you stopped?
Let's see, I started when I was a sophomore in high school. So it's been 5 years. And I just stopped about a year ago. It's been 4 or 5 years. It's a long time.
Go ahead.
What are weeds? I've heard a lot about them, but I still don't know what they are.
What does LSD look like?
What drugs do people start on? People say that marijuana starts you on more harmful drugs. Is that true?
Do drugs affect your schoolwork or your grades?
What's the most harmful kind of drug?
Does smoking marijuana affect your health?
We came here to talk about drugs, and that's sort of a hard thing to do. I mean, to just say, I don't take drugs and I don't think people should. You know, that's what I feel about it. By the way, I saw some people smoking pot outside your school just before, when I went to have a cigarette. I started taking drugs, I guess, as an experiment. You know, I just started smoking pot. And then after a while, I started taking pills. And after a while, I started taking LSD and then heroin. So Brendan and I and a few other people started a program. And the program is to help people that are taking drugs, really to help people help themselves. Because I can't make somebody change. I can only maybe tell them about myself and what happened to me.
I don't feel it's too important what the name of the chemical I took was. I tried psychedelics. I stayed with pot for quite a long time. And I was with dope for quite a long time. And it's been about 3 years since I got high. I don't really know what's important about which particular drugs I took. But like Jan, I think what's important is the reasons I took them.
I mean, do you think that anybody who takes marijuana is going to end up shooting heroin?
No, I don't think that anyone who takes, smokes pot is going to take heroin by any means. But I think that just the fact that they're smoking pot is very dangerous. I mean, to me, it's not a matter of drugs. You see, we really don't want to talk about that. Like, we feel that a drug is just a symptom of a problem.
If you take drugs or pot or whatever you want to call it for escapement, can't you do the same thing with liquor?
Sure. Like I say, I think you can do the same thing with a number of techniques You know, like they're all different. You can run away from home to Mexico and live in the streets. There are a lot of things that wind up doing the same thing for you, which is that instead of dealing honestly with your problems and straightforwardly, you're copping out, you're dropping out. And the same goes for anybody who's using a whole lot of alcohol or spends all his time racing around the streets in the car or sleeping. You know, there are a lot of different escapes.
I think a lot of kids just do it just to show that they can do it, and just to say I've taken pot, or I'm taking pot, you know, or I'm a pothead, or, you know, just saying I got high.
And so, to belong with their friends, they do what their friends do.
Yeah.
Like they go out and they get high, just because their friends are, and just to belong.
Or because they don't have any friends, maybe?
Well, I think that a good reason is just the curiosity, because, like, there's a place around here that sells 31 flavors of ice cream, and I've tasted practically all of them just because I'd like to see what they taste like.
Curiosity. When you hear several kids saying, gee, we went out to a golf course, we were at the 5th hole, we all got bombed, everything looked beautiful, we were so free, nothing to hold us down. It was a beautiful experience, and you're sitting there and you're listening. Boy, it sounds nice.
Yeah.
Gee, I wonder if it's really that way, and you keep thinking about it. And then after a while, gee, I think I'll try it, even though maybe way down inside.
That's the first time.
I think, as you said, that a lot of kids maybe who aren't that popular or can't get along with kids, they find a crowd who, as you say, accepts you if you take, you know, if you smoke marijuana. And I think as long as you feel part of this group, then you're gonna do it, definitely.
I was tempted to try it after someone came up to me and he said, this is a great opportunity to try and, quote, dig yourself, to try and understand yourself.
Crap. I don't think, from what I know about users, from what I know about friends and associates, etc., you trying it, what I know about articles and things, I don't think it helps you to understand yourself.
See, one thing, when you're getting high, you do things which are weird and which are a nice trip and which really flip you out. And they're a great joke for when you're high, but when you come down, you realize they're not such great art. If you take acid and you see all these funny colors and all this, you never saw that before, so I guess you've learned something. But have you learned more than you would have just by living a clean life?
Well, you don't.
I don't know.
I don't know. Learn anything, or just experience it. No, you experience all these funny colors.
I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to get away from society's games, but thinking you can do it easily is wrong. And most of the kids wind up, and I wound up, just playing bigger games. The whole pot scene is one big game. And the funny thing about a pot party is there's nothing there but pot. The people aren't even there. There's nothing. Everybody who's there, if you say, what's happening? They say, oh, it's groovy pot.
I'm so stoned.
When I started smoking, I started very slowly, like once and then 6 months later and then 3 months. The purpose of an encounter is to teach us coping mechanisms, not to cure problems or solve them, but to teach people how to deal with problems. There are a lot of different kinds of group sessions and group therapies, but this is the one we use at Encounter. And when I went into dope, I went all the way. I didn't put anybody down. And I was like you in a way, because I did want to be dope. My wife, Lynn, also got very messed up with drugs.
People think that getting high will always feel good, but there's a point that you come to, whatever, like with pot, like when it doesn't do it for you anymore and you have to go someplace else. Because when I stopped smoking, like just before then, like it wasn't really enough, you know, and like you think like it'll always be good, like one thing will always be good, you'll never do anything else, you know. It's so stupid because it's not true.
I was really unaware of drugs completely when I came to New York. I guess I was just what you'd call a country hick, you know. And I came and I was going with this guy, and he had just started getting into drugs. And he brought it up and I was really shocked. And, you know, I just didn't know what to think. I said, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You know, this is bad, this is bad. I could hold no argument because I just didn't know anything about it. And I was really unaware. And then one day I turned on, and, you know, it was, I just kept doing it because I guess I liked the feeling, and I fell into the hippie scene. I dressed like a hippie, and I talked like one, and I acted like one, all the time saying I wasn't a hippie.
I can relate to you on that, man, because when I started sniffing glue, that looked down upon people who just didn't touch anything, not even liquor, you know? And I used to think myself as being pretty cool, and, you know, really nervous and everything, you know, nerd.
You know, that whole image thing is really where it's at, because the biggest problems I had, I was 15, like at 16, you know, as I got involved. The biggest thing in my life was girls. And the next biggest thing was guys, or maybe vice versa. I mean, one was impressing girls and one was impressing the guys around you.
Yeah.
The biggest reason I started doing this thing is because it looked impressive. It really scared the hell out of me, but it looked good. I felt I couldn't make it with them. I also put them down, but I mean, it's not even something I realized later. I mean, now I know that a lot of the reason was I couldn't make it with those people. But I mean, I knew then that I didn't really feel comfortable, period, with people. And I didn't. I didn't feel comfortable. And I think, you know, like pot, psychedelics, you know, like I was around before acid, so for me it was peyote, right, and pills, and all this stuff, every one of them was just exactly the same thing to me, which was, it was a game I could play, there were people I could talk to, it was an image I could cop, you know, it was a way of looking good I could handle, and I could do it easily, you know, with a little money.
And there were people you could look down on, too.
Right.
I mean, I took drugs because I was really scared of people, like Brendan said, and I was really scared of girls, totally. I mean, my heart would start pounding when someone came up to me to talk to me, if I was with a girl. How come? Because I felt so bad about myself. I mean, at first I felt bad about myself. I guess a lot of kids do when they grow up. I don't think I felt that much worse about myself than most people. But then I got into drugs and I stopped dealing with things. Instead of going out after the girl I liked, I would go get high. And I had girls who dug me. I had girls coming around to me, you know, wanting to talk to me and stuff. And I would tell them to go away, or I'd run away and get high. And as it went on, it got worse and worse. The more I didn't have them, the more scared I got. The more drugs I took, the worse I felt. I didn't go to school, didn't have respect for myself. My parents were yelling at me. You know, I was getting really emotionally uptight. I mean, I was just so locked away. Like I had, I was afraid of being afraid of being afraid of being afraid of people.
I guess when it stopped scaring me, I began to really get scared about myself, because it became just like brushing my teeth. And then I thought, wait a minute, you're becoming one of them. And all the time I'd always, actually, even when I had a habit, I thought, I'm really not one of them. Until I looked at myself and I saw the dirt all over me and my clothes were filthy and the cockroaches and stuff, and I thought, wait a minute, you are one of them. And I really panicked and called up Encounter right away. Matter of fact, somebody said to me, hey, you're a junkie. I said, what? You know, and I was really outraged at him. I screamed at him for about an hour, because he dared to tell me I was one of them.
Yeah, that's why we say that.
It's really true, though.
I later would turn people in to get money from them. You know, like I would go up to people who were just smoking pot and try to sell them amphetamine or heroin if I needed money. Even if, you know, like not wanting to get them high on it, but just wanting the money. And I know I really messed up a lot of people. I don't feel bad now, thinking about it in the abstract, except when I hear about people that I knew or that I turned on that, you know, it really messed up, and then it really bothers me. And I really feel like I wish I could go out and do something for them.
I'm very nervous, I'm very tense, and I feel very sick. I want help to keep away from drugs. But right now, I'm finding it hard, very hard. I want to be able to make it on my own without the use of drugs. I don't want to always have to look and say, well, here's the easy way out. You know, I won't face reality. I want to face reality. I was going out with a guy. Then I found out that I was pregnant. And I was still using drugs. And I really wanted the baby. It sounds funny, but I really wanted that baby because it was part of John. And he says, we'll get married. And I told him, no, I says, you don't want to marry a junkie. And I lost the baby.
For me to even think about smoking any pot is so silly. You know, just the chance, which is very limited maybe, but just the one chance of going to jail or something, or getting thrown out of school, like I'm not willing to take that at all.
You know, it just doesn't matter, you know, this smoking or it makes no difference, you know.
Except you can get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, but I never get myself into a position where I could...
Yeah, I know. That's what they all say.
That is what they all say, you gotta admit. There is one thing that is, it is what they all say.
This will be arrest number 3529. 3529. Make sure you put it on the pedigree sheet. You want to make a phone call?
No.
When you get there...
Well, you can just get busted for possession. You can get busted while you're buying. You can get arrested for consorting. Or really specifically, you can get arrested because a guy who was probably your friend turned you in.
Is the wagon here?
The wagon's here.
The wagon's here? Okie doke. Take him out.
This guy was so careful, he never carried pot, never carried acid, never carried anything outside of his house. And he went to jail for 1.5 years of a 3-year sentence because he had a pipe which pot had been smoked in at some time or other. So you cannot be careful. You know, and Sam Anglin once said to me, if I hear a knock on the door at 2 in the morning, you know, and it's a policeman, I say, what are you knocking on my door at 2 in the morning? I don't say, oh, it's a man, jump out the window. And it is a whole different thing. It's funny that I never even realized it till he said it even, how much my life revolved around what I could and couldn't carry. I mean, even when I had smoked pot about 3 times in my whole life, I was already tremendously conscious of police and hiding.
Just knowing so many people in jail now, all those people who said, oh, jail, you know, now they're in jail. It's funny in a way, but it's really horrible.
You know, like this was after shooting it for about 1 year. Well, I was having hallucinations, and plus, you know, I was having a physical ailment, you know, nerve condition, you know, losing coordination, you know, which I in fact stayed with me, you know, like eventually I got sent to the reformatory, but I still had this nervous condition, you know, and still hallucinating.
I took a lot of acid and it was groovy. And then I took a trip once after a whole bunch of trips, and I got scared and everything just came in. I couldn't see. My eyes were like, I felt like I was going blind, and I felt like there was, if you get a toothache, it felt like there was this pain going right into the nerves in my brain. And I had to have someone lead me home. I was at an apartment, and I just stayed up all night. I kept saying to myself, all that night, the only thing I want in the world is to be able to see again. I kept saying it. I said, please God, I'll never touch anything or do anything wrong again if you just let me see good. You know, and then finally in the morning, I finally was able to see a little bit. You know, my eyes still hurt. And then I took another trip after that 2 weeks later.
Well, when I think how close I came to dying, I really can't even talk about it sometimes, but when I was about 16 and a half, I hadn't even been using drugs for that long. And I took a whole bunch of pills. I have no idea how many. I really don't have any idea. And I walked around the city for about 14 hours. And these guys, these fellow pillheads, since I was messed up, figured, so we'll give them some pep pills because that'll wake them up, you know. So they gave me a whole bunch of amphetamine, and that just, you know, I was so goofed up, I just got worse. And I wandered out, and somehow I got on a subway station. And the last thing I remember is looking down at the yellow line that's right at the edge of the platform, and then feeling something hit my head. And all of a sudden, there's a cop shining a flashlight in my eyes, and this really scares me just to think about it. And he says, what happened to you? And I say, I don't know. And he says, we just pulled you off the tracks. He said, you had your head on one track and your feet on the other, and we flagged down the train 30 yards away. The two things that really, the things that made it so bad for me, really bad, it was one that I really almost died. and didn't seem to give a damn. You know, I mean, for 3 or 4 days, don't get me wrong, I was scared, but I went back to getting high in a week. That's the thing. You know, I was scared, but I didn't really give a damn. And the other thing that really messes me up about it is those guys who were supposed to be my friends, you know, who really couldn't have cared less, because I belonged in a hospital, but they weren't going to get busted bringing me to one, you know. They weren't about to. And I've never gotten over that, ever. It just messed me around.
I don't think I ever had a singularly horrible experience. I think the physical sickness that I felt just towards the end, when my kidneys started to go and my liver started to go and my skin started falling off, and I started losing my hair and it was turning white and my teeth were all, you know, terrible, and I couldn't see very well. I had spots in front of my eyes all the time. That was when part of the reasons I stopped taking drugs, because I was just dying. You know, every part of me was just infected and horrible. And I just woke up one morning and saw what I came to. I was racked with pain. You know, there was no part of me that wasn't infected or hurting or anything. So then I just decided to quit. I was filthy and it was just horrible. And I'm still sick too, which is even worse, you know. I mean, even now I'm constantly fighting staying well, and if I had never taken drugs and just kind of gone to psychiatrists and dealt with not being able to talk to people and learned how to talk to them like I'm having to learn in the end anyway, I wouldn't be so sick, you know, and I wouldn't be afraid of having children because I took too much LSD and they might come out all messed up. And I'm afraid of a lot of things now as I grow up that I normally wouldn't have been afraid of. I guess that's pretty horrible.
Have you had your chromosomes checked?
How many times have you taken LSD?
About 15 times.
Hold it. Don't touch it.
And what will the results show? I mean, will they say, don't have children or have them, or can they tell that sort of thing?
No, this is only show if you have chromosome damage.
What happens when your chromosomes are broken?
If you have broken chromosomes, there are potentially 3 kinds of dangers. One is to yourself. We know from people who have had a lot of radiation and who have the same kind of chromosome damage that there is an increased incidence of leukemia in such individuals. This, therefore, is one danger. The other kind of danger would be if you expose your child that is still in the womb to the drug. Other agents have been shown to produce congenital malformations and miscarriages when the child is exposed in the mother. The third kind of danger would be to future generations, and that's really the most hidden kind of danger, because chromosome rearrangements of the kind that we find in LSD under different circumstances have been shown to produce permanent genetic damage if the chromosome breaks occur in those tissues that make sperm and eggs. These damaged chromosomes can then carry on to the next generation, again produce miscarriages or malformation, and could in fact not make themselves be felt until the generation after. We've now studied LSD users, and in about 85% found a marked increase in the number of broken chromosomes.
Oh, I know. Wait a second. The average, you know, most hippies, I think, would probably say that they don't really care whether or not the world is a rational or irrational place, but that the world is primarily a pretty painful place. And
I went back to college and worked my head off so that they'd let me stay in. And I got elected to student government.
Hippie is kind of an easy way out. It's a way of running away. There's a problem which exists, and you feel, and it's all around you. And you've got to really cope with it.
What problem? Problem relating to people?
The problem of relating to people, the problem that there's pain in the world, you know. That was one of the things we said, and one of the things we were talking about was how a child reacts to pain. A child reacts to pain by crying and then running away. You couldn't cry any longer, and you couldn't run away.
hate to say it, but maybe the world is simply just not worth adapting to. Maybe the world itself is so screwed up. Maybe all the machines that make the world go round.
There is only the world. There is nothing else. And then one of the reasons...
That's one, yeah, okay, but, you know, then you talk about what's the world? I mean, what is the world?
You don't know. You know? Wait a minute, you don't know what the world is? What are you talking about? You know what he meant. There is only the world. You don't have any choice. You can say, let's drop out of the world, but all you're saying is, let's move from this corner of the room to that corner of the room, or let's paint the wall blue. It's still the world. What I'm saying is that it's a damn shame that the people can't do something much more constructive with their discontent. And
Maybe
I think
there's nothing to do.
Hey, wait a minute, but I think that the reason is, I think that the reason is because they're not really there because the world's so messed up. I think they're really there because they like it and they enjoy it and they don't really give a good damn where the world is at. They like what they're doing, they like the game they're playing, they like the clothes they're wearing, and if they have to, the only thing is, you see, I don't think, like I say, man, I don't think it's that people don't have a right to just care about themselves, but all I'm saying is that it just seems to me a goddamn shame when people walk around and they understand that there's something pretty wrong with the world the way it's being played right now. And yet, the only thing they can think of doing is keeping themselves cool. I think
up for their right
most
to
of the
drop
hippies
out.
I know are kids who really, like, enjoy running around crazy, man. And that's as simple as that. They enjoy, and when I was in the street, just enjoyed running around crazy with no responsibilities and playing games all the time and dressing up funny. And that's really where it's at. And I didn't really give a damn what happened to anybody else.
Well, what's it to you what they do? I don't see why you're so uptight about it.
I said that the only thing that bugs me is that I just think it's a damn shame. I'm trying to say, listen, man, it didn't work for me. It hasn't worked for my friends. The only thing I see happening is people falling into a trap, man. I fell into it. And all I can say is, listen, you can drop out if you want to, Pete. You really can. But it hasn't worked for most people, man. And what happens is that you wind up in a corner and the world is still messed up. Only the difference is now you're not doing anything about it. What's exciting about being married to Lynn is the fact that she's such a wonderful person. And I've learned so much being married to her, and I'm learning that I'm a wonderful person too by being with her.
I like the pink one better.
I wonder why they put the green one in there. Did they ask you?
I don't care. I don't care. I would
It's
rather-
work. It's real work living with another human being, and learn that the other person is really a different person who has different wants, different needs, different vocabulary. You know, one of the problems is that lots of times I want a lot of reassurances about that she loves me and feels good about me. And yeah, what I'm saying is that in general, it's like you don't really make a try to really communicate. I feel just that it's very hard to know what you're talking about, what you're feeling. And lots of times, like, I wonder if you love me. And not that I don't know you love me, I mean, I know that, but I just don't feel it because you're not doing anything with me. You're sort of sitting there all alone. And I just wanted to say it, that's all.
Well, I feel controlled. I feel manipulated in a lot of ways, and I felt like I feel like I'm always the one. I guess this is really what's hurt me, is that I'm always the one to have to do things.
What was this esoteric thing? This seems like a private conversation here. Maybe we could all know what's going on.
Well, Lynn told me sometimes, in fact, she felt like she wanted to leave me. She said she knew she wouldn't, but I don't know, it did scare me.
She did there, or she does?
I said that I had, for the last couple of weeks, I had felt like things had gotten really bad with us, and that I felt really, really horrible because Brendan was very angry and upset and hostile. I don't know why.
What I feel is really that I am afraid of Lynn, and that I don't ask for what I need, And she may not ask for what she needs.
Where does this fear stem from this girl? What does she do that makes you afraid?
Well, the fact that she's very self-sufficient and, like, I don't know, yeah, that's it. The fact that she can make it without me. And, I don't know, I love her, and I could lose her and a lot of things. And last week, and the week before. What could I do? Scare her, hurt her, push her around.
Can you do any of that?
Yeah, I do it all. That's how I know I can do it to lose her.
Is that it, Lynn? Are those all the things that are really bothering you and scaring you and things?
Yeah, basically. But you know something, Brendan? Those things may scare the hell out of me and everything like that. But you know you'd never lose me unless you shot dope, Brendan. You know that. That's the only thing I can say. Is that you know, like you may hurt me in 1,000 ways, but I couldn't leave you. You know, I've never done that. I've never walked out of the door. And I very rarely even have feelings like that. But I do need you to help me, Brendan. I do need this for you. You know, I said, like, maybe it's the one thing that can really help me is for you just to sit down and say, listen, grab a hold of me for a second and say, listen, stop running around like a lunatic. You know, but don't get angry about it. Just say, look, I need you.
Okay, stop running around like a lunatic.
Jose, move out of the way. I'm sorry.
I feel like I should be sitting here.
Get up.
Yeah, I think it's my
Can we have breakfast together again?
I think kids really need proof. I think that kids are just so willing to experiment. I think that kids need a lot more proof against something than for it. I mean, if someone just said, you know, take it, it's really great, and they've not taken it, maybe I might have tried it, I don't know.
Yeah, but there's a question of degree. How much of a chance are you willing to take? If someone, you know, says, listen, take it on faith that this might be wrong for you. It might, you know, it just might be harmful. How much of a chance are you willing to take?
Probably the only kind of proof that you're ever going to get is to listen to a thing like this, to be aware that it's all over the school, to be aware that it's what people talk about all over the country, and to decide all by yourself. Either to let your curiosity say, okay, try it, or to say, I don't need this.
Again, it's just a question of degree. You know, how stupid can you be? You can be very stupid, you can be slightly stupid, or you can try to be as little stupid as possible.